Have you had a point in your life where you feel stuck and you don't know what to do next? Maybe feeling like you don't really know who you are, and when you look in the mirror, you don't recognize some of the behaviors and the thought patterns and things that you are exuding, and you don't really know what to do about it. You don't know where to go. You don't know how to change. Well, let me help you. Hi, my name is Cicily, and I'm here to help you get unstuck from the identity crisis, the analysis paralysis, and all of the things that get in our way of finding who we really are and inevitably finding our true success, our patterns in life that lead us into those things, and getting the motivation to get up out of the paralysis and get up out of being stuck. Because really, a lot of it falls back into the things that we think and our thought patterns and our beliefs about ourselves. So if you're feeling stuck and you don't really know how to overcome that, what to do next, let me be the first to encourage you. I recently went through this. I spent about 4 or 5 years building a solo business. I was an entrepreneur. And at the height of all of that, about 4 or 5 years in, I made a decision to move in a different direction physically, move states, and ended up seeing kind of my business kind of collapse and fall apart. And I had been in this industry for about 10 years at this point. And so this is all I had ever known. And I was really loving it, was feeling so fulfilled. And I was feeling like this was a big identifying factor. Like anytime somebody would ask me, who are you, Cicily? Tell me about you. I would always gravitate towards what I did. And I would always tell them, well, my name is Cicily, and here are the things that I do, and here are the performance-based things that I use as labels to identify myself. And so when we moved out to where we live now, and my business kind of started to collapse, I felt like not just insecure in the fact that, if my business goes under, how am I going to be able to provide for my family? But it was more so, if this goes under, all of the foundation of who I am is going to also go under, and then I'm not going to even know who I'm who I'm dealing with, who I'm looking at in the mirror, and how do I even overcome that? Where do I go from here? And unfortunately, I went through the entire crisis. I went through the entire process, and it did fall apart. I did everything I could to save it, not because I believed that this is what I want to do with my life and I see success in it, and I was coming from this place of a healthy mentality and a healthy heart. It was honestly me just trying to save what remnants of myself that I knew at that time and avoid feeling completely vulnerable to the world around me, and avoid feeling completely insecure, and avoid looking like an idiot to everyone around me. And honestly, that is just such a load of BS. A lot of us have been sold the lie that in order to figure out who we are, we need to look at our skill sets. We need to look at the jobs that we have. We need to look at how much money we're raking in. And that, in essence, defines who we are. And when I was doing that and everything fell apart, I became very, very insecure. I became very fragile emotionally. And I honestly just kind of caved in within myself. And I found myself doing what I could to keep the business afloat, but I lost the passion for it. I lost the desire to even pursue any sort of goals and dreams. And for about 6 months, 6, 7, 8 months, I worked in my office. I was just kind of going through the motions, but the heart and the passion obviously were not there. And I ended up kind of just altogether falling apart internally. And after all of the projects were completed with my business, I lost the drive to keep pursuing it because I no longer believed in myself and in my capabilities and in my value in essence, because the failure of my business falling apart and what I witnessed with my eyes in my mind was a reflection of my own self-value, and it was a reflection of my inability to do anything, because if this failed, then it's because I am a failure. And I started to identify with that within, myself. And it created a massive, massive problem where at the age of 27, I had this huge identity crisis. An identity crisis, honestly, like the term sounds very severe and very shocking. It can be. I do think that anybody at any point in their life can experience an identity crisis because it's when you have life events that come in to conflict with core beliefs about yourself. And so an identity crisis can be triggered by a multitude of things. It can be triggered by a job loss, a career loss, a breakup, a loss of a person in your life that you value very deeply, that you kind of depend on. It can be a combination of, failing to reach a milestone or a goal that you've been striving towards, getting fired, getting laid off, whatever it may be for you, or a traumatic life event in terms of, like, say you are wanting to start a family and then you find out through the doctor that you're not capable of bearing biological children, or something, kind of along those lines. That can kind of trigger an identity crisis. And the reason why it happens, at least in my case, and I feel like this is for a lot of people, is because we get this idea in our head that, the job that we have, the career we're pursuing, the family we want to start, the person that we envision ourselves to be becomes our identity, and it's only associated with the performance, what we can produce, what we can do. And when those things don't come true or they fall apart and we are forced to either start over or reevaluate or reposition ourselves, whatever it is that you're having to do, we come into conflict with this idea of, if this doesn't happen, then who are we really? Do I really even know myself? And the fact of the matter is, you have to understand that your value and your self-worth and your identity and all of those things can never stem from what can you do and what can you produce. Our value and our self-worth comes from something so much more deeper. It's so much, it can't come from something that the world can just take. That when the stock market crashes, there goes your self-worth. It cannot depend on outside circumstances. It cannot depend on somebody else's validation for you. And the problem is, somewhere in our culture, somewhere in our upbringing, probably through school, probably through childhood, we are taught to depend on the validation of other people. Even with the whole grading system of, like, if you write a paper, if you do your math or whatever, you get an A and you get rewarded when you do it well and you do it perfect and you do it right, and you get disciplined if you don't. And it starts to kind of create a measuring system of those who are valuable and those who are not, depending on how they fall in that measurement system. And I hate to call it like that, but it is that. And so we go through these things in our developmental processes as children that create these people who are seeking validation and affirmation from external resources. And when we get that validation and that affirmation from those external resources, we then learn to agree with it rather than looking inwards and finding that validation and affirmation from within based off of non-tangible external things, based off of something that can't be taken from us, that will never change over time or with the wind, rather than looking from within and finding that and then proving to the world around us that that is who we are. We are taught to do the reverse from teachers, from professors, from our bosses, from our parents. And then depending on what they say and the feedback that they give us, like, okay, you can improve here, you can do better here, good job. Then we take that information, we digest it, and we create our identities based off of those things. When we develop a vision for ourselves, when we start to actually dream about, who could I become in the next 5 years, or who do I want to be when I grow up, we create it within the confines of verbal praise and affirmation from mankind rather than from within. We base it all on accomplishments, on money, on accolades, and on the applause of mankind. And so when we reach that time in our life, when it's time to take the leap and pursue the business, and we're raking in the money and we're doing great, and then all of a sudden it falls apart, because we have only ever measured our self-worth and our value based off of success in the way that we were taught, when we are confronted with the idea of failure, it is the most terrifying thing possible, and it's almost like we take the rug out from under ourselves and rip it out. If you've clicked this video and you feel like you're living a unique experience, that you are having this identity crisis, or you're feeling stuck in life because the person you look at in the mirror is not the person that you envisioned, and you're angry and you're uncomfortable and you don't know what to do, you feel kind of paralyzed in this place, I want you to first understand that you are not alone. If you believe that first lie of like, this is just me, something's wrong with me, something's broken, nobody else has gone through this, number one, you're never going to escape that place of being stuck. You will kind of get into this cyclical, shameful pattern of, like I was doing, just going through the motions just to pay the bills, then going back to bed, crying yourself to sleep, not being able to dream for the future and hope for the future or anything like that. And then it can honestly spiral into worse things. I do sincerely believe, and I hate to really say it, but I'm going to call it like it is because you clicked on this video for a reason. I do believe that this is where suicidal thoughts come from, is when we believe that our life experiences and our hardships and our failures and blah, 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 you go down the list, when we believe that it is unique to us, that there's something within us, and I'm not going to say us, I'm going to say me. If I believe there's something wrong with me and I'm the only person on the entire planet that could ever be dealing with this, then of course I'm going to blame that person. I'm going to learn to hate that person. I'm going to believe that there's nothing that that person could ever accomplish to improve upon my circumstances. And then that can lead to, well, if nothing's ever going to change, then why even exist? So not trying to trigger anybody, not trying to say that that is the truth. It is 100% a lie, and you have to shake that off of yourself. You have to understand that life experiences, identity crises, all of these things go across the board. Nobody is exempt from learning who they really are, and nobody is exempt from the failure that comes from trying to pursue success. Okay, so number one, please get that off of you. You have to understand that life is going to life, and there is nothing wrong with you. It's just you have to learn to overcome, and that's okay. The second thing in order to escape the identity crisis is that you're going to have to learn to be okay with the fact that it's uncomfortable. So for me, when I lost my business and I was trying to scramble just to keep it all together because it's honestly the only thing I knew myself to be, and I didn't really know what I was beyond those things, when my business was falling apart, I didn't want to keep it together simply because I wanted that business with all of me, and I had so much clarity that this is what I want to do with my life. It's what I had been doing. I was talented with it. I was skilled with it. And so I pursued it, and then I kind of wrapped my entire self around it. And so when it fell apart, it was like, well, there goes my identity with it. And so it was just like this attempt to honestly preserve myself in the manner that I knew myself to be. So when this happens, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel like you're not comfortable in your own skin, that you don't recognize who you are. You're probably going to scream at yourself in the mirror, and that is okay. There are many times when I sat in the bathroom and I did not like the person that I saw. I would sit in the bath and I would cry. There's going to be tears. There's going to be blood and sweat and all of the ugly, okay? It's not going to be pretty to sit with the identity crisis and to understand what's going on. When life throws us a curveball, okay, which it happens, it's going to happen to everybody, okay? I'm trying to stress that enough for you. When life throws us a curveball, it's never going to be at a convenient time. Trauma is never going to come at a convenient time. Okay, so the business falling apart, you had the miscarriage, you go through a divorce, you have a really bad breakup, your friend stabs you in the back, whatever it is that you go through that creates this like massive identity crisis. It's never going to come when you're ready. Okay, so the fact that it's uncomfortable, the fact that you don't know what's going on, you're going to be shocked. Your body has to process that shock. Like it's It's just basic psychology, okay? We have to find the time to wrap our heads around what's happening. Your body has to process the shock. You're likely going to cry. You're going to need to rest. Give your body as much rest as possible. Don't rush the process of the discomfort. Don't rush all of the emotional processing. Don't rush the questioning of what's going on. But understand this. It's okay to be upset, but don't make the decision to stay there. Make the decision to understand. Seek to understand what's going on. What is it that is really happening within you? Because first you have to understand, okay, this is not because there's something wrong with me. It's a part of life. I'm going to learn from it. Does it suck? Absolutely. Does it hurt like hell? Absolutely. So understanding first that there's nothing wrong with you, it's just a part of life, is going to help you sit in the emotion and not take it personally and not take it on as a part of your identity and a part of who you are. With me, when my identity fell apart, I did the opposite. And so please learn from my mistakes. What ended up happening was I kind of got tunnel vision for my business. I didn't really pursue friends and I didn't really pursue any relationships for about the first year that we were living here. And so I isolated myself. And then when my business fell apart, I didn't have anybody to shoulder my burdens with me. I didn't have anybody to understand what I was going through. Like, I mean, physically close. I mean, I could call my friends and I could call my family, but in a time like this, you kind of want to have somebody close to you. I had my husband, but you know, he would be off at work and I would be at the house during the day just crying my eyes out. So there were a lot of things that ended up happening right when we had moved here. I wasn't pursuing my hobbies. I lost that part of myself. I was extremely lonely because we moved to a new place and I was just throwing myself into my job, which kind of became the pinnacle of like all that I knew myself to be. And so when that fell apart, like I had already been through two major like life shifts and kind of peeling away who I was. So when my business kind of fell apart, it was like the last leg that I had to stand on. And so when the discomfort came, it was deep, deep, painful discomfort. And so I didn't want to sit with it. I wanted to rush through it. I wanted it to be over. And I believed the first lie that I told you that you don't need to believe. So that also led to a deep spiral of just, I wasn't even wanting to deal with the discomfort and sit with it and try to find some clarity in it and wrestle. I just was like, well, I'm doomed. And that is not going to get you anywhere. If you want to get out of this, if you want to overcome, a part of it is going to be accepting the discomfort from the place to understand what's going on. But if you take a hold of the lie that this is your fault and it's unique to you and all of that, then when it's time for you to embrace the discomfort in order to see clarity and understand, you're not going to want to understand. You're just going to play the victim and believe that, well, you're the victim of your life. And if you want to be successful, you're never going to be successful if you believe that. You will not be successful if you believe those things. And if you just allow life to just hand you lemons and everything be sour, that's exactly what you're going to get. You will be the doormat to your life. A lot of people will hit rock bottom and then they will ask the questions of what is it that I'm doing here? How can I improve? How can I get past this? And a lot of times when we rush through the discomfort process, we never really ask those questions. We only seek to soothe the pain. And this is where drugs and alcohol and any other types of self-soothing can come from. Because believe me, if you were sitting on your couch watching Netflix 8 hours a day because you don't want to deal with the discomfort of this crisis you're going through, you will throw your life away. If all you're trying to do is self-soothe and just distract yourself from the pain because you're tired of crying, you're tired of feeling like a failure, you don't know what to do, but you're not willing to do the work to wrestle it out, then no, you won't get past this. Understand that processing through the discomfort, it's going to be in waves. So you may just like have messy emotions where you have no idea what's going on. And then there may be a wave where you have clarity, where you have some sort of certainty that's brought on about like how maybe this happened and maybe what core beliefs you were carrying that brought you to this conflict, that when life gave you this traumatic event, here's what you were believing prior to that, and that's what caused this. But you can't get there until you start asking the questions and you sit with the discomfort and you allow the pain to do its work. Understand that our emotions are so key. They're key to this. Not saying that we believe everything that we feel and we deem it true, but it is a language that we can kind of interpret in our processing time. The next thing that you're going to need to do, when you feel like you have processed a lot of your discomfort and you're getting clarity from all of that, is you're going to have to let go of the old narrative. And I know that this may be hard for a lot of us because, you live in that identity of like, well, this is all I've ever known myself to be. I've only ever known myself to be a teacher. I've only ever known myself to be a mom, a wife. I've only ever known myself to be whatever it is that was this old narrative that you were clinging to, that when life kind of hit you in the face and said, that's not going to happen, not saying that it won't, but within the confines of what you believed you would be or what you believed that you were, you have to shed that. And when life hits you, it hits you hard, and it's almost like you split in two. And you have the choice to proceed with the old narrative, which is the person that you have lived in this reality and this belief for X amount of time. You've always been this person. Or you can shed that and become the person that you were always meant to be, which is rooted in truth and rooted in deeper things other than freaking money, fame, success, appraisal, approval of man, whatever. You have a choice. And during the identity crisis, you are living a double life. You need to understand that. That's why it's so incredibly painful. Because when you're walking through this identity crisis, it's like you're wrestling between the two forms of yourself. The true form and the old dead guy. And you have to shed it. And it is going to be painful. You have to understand that even if those things don't happen, I am more than that. You're more than that in the sense that the narrative that you've been living under was the only expression of you. It was the only version of you that you knew. And that is not serving you. Because when you tie yourself to that one expression, not tie yourself to that one, identity, like your true identity. That's not what I'm saying. Because a lot of us pigeonhole our identities to 1, 2, 3 expressions of who we are. Oh, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I am this job, career, whatever. And that's it. And that's all we know. And then say you get divorced, your kids write you off, and you lose your job. Then what in the hell are you now? And that's what I'm trying to say. You have to shed the only expressions that you've pigeonholed your identity to, because it's not serving you to only be those things. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. I know that going through a crisis is extremely uncomfortable and it's very terrifying. What I'm trying to say is that you need to kind of take all of the things that you've thought that you were and thought that you would be and only be, and open it up and expand it. And when you do that, you're shedding this narrative of, well, this is all I've ever known myself to be, and this is all I'll ever do, because that's what my mom said, that's what my dad said, that's what my teacher said. They said that I would never amount to being an artist, a musician. I would never amount to anything. Like, get rid of that. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to take all of your skill sets, all of your talents, all of the things that you're passionate about that you find yourself bending towards, and we're going to open it up and expand it. We're not going to say that this is the only thing that you can do. This is the only thing that you can be, because that is a load of crap. We're going to shed all of the things that you've been labeled as in your past, the useless, worthless, never amount to anything, or mediocre, just okay, whatever. You're going to shed all that because it is not serving you in the future. What you want out of this identity crisis is to grow. What you want is to exponentially grow. We want to multiply what in the past all we have ever done is add to. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope that it is getting through to you. That to shed this is not to say goodbye forever, I can't ever do it again. You can. You can totally do it. But understand that you are more than that. when we do that, we give ourselves permission to redefine who we are. So life is kind of like a lab, okay? It's like a science experiment. You are in control of the choices that you make. You are in control of the outcomes of your life in this manner. If you don't want to be a teacher anymore, just freaking quit. Go do something else. We make things so complicated because we get so comfortable and we get so set in our ways based off of all the things I've already talked about. Familiarity is the enemy of growth. You need to understand the whole point of the identity crisis is to grow, it's to get better. And if you don't allow yourself to unpack what you've always known, to take it apart, to throw it away, to rip it up, then you're not going to grow. You need to give yourself permission to explore the opportunities, to try something new. A perfect example of this for me is I had this business. I was very good at marketing. I was doing a photography business because I was passionate about photography. And I had done it for 5 years. I had done the marketing for about 10 years. And so I was like, okay, cool. I am good at this. I get lots of approval and praise from my boss. And so obviously this is something I should pursue. And when I did and it fell apart, I just was like, well, this is all I've ever done. How come it's not working? Obviously there's something wrong with me. Maybe it's my fault and then blah, blah, blah. I just fell into this like, whatever you want to call it, this pit of despair, and couldn't envision myself doing anything else simply because I was familiar with that. And it's so dumb because I'm 28 years old. I got all the freaking time in the world. I can go back to school if I want. I can learn a new trade. I can learn a new skill. It all boils down to, what do I want to do? How do I want to rewrite my story? How do I want to redefine my life? And when you understand that the opportunities are endless for you in terms of your dreams and your goals and how you want them to come to pass, then it doesn't have to happen just the one way that I've learned. I can go and try something else. And that's what I'm saying. All of who we are is so much greater than the stupid labels that we put on ourselves when we're growing up. It's funny because when you ask kids in kindergarten, what they want to be when they grow up, the opportunities for them are endless. And so we almost need to revert back to being childlike in our ways of thinking and understand that we still have time. If you are living and breathing, you still have time. You still have time to rediscover parts of you that are left to discover because we are extremely complex beings. And to give up on that discovery process is to give up on our future entirely. And so allow yourself to redefine and be crazy about it. Honestly, in the wrestling process, in that rediscovering process of who we are, think the wild stuff. Think the crazy things. Go wild with it. And allow yourself to dream. Allow it to be fun. Because remember, in the discomfort process, we're crying, we're wrestling, it's uncomfortable, and we don't like it. And a lot of these really yucky and negative things are kind of coming out of us as a way to shed this old narrative. So embrace the fun aspect of this part of the process and allow yourself to really kind of expand your thinking in a way that's very childlike and fun. Like, throw being an astronaut on the table because you know what? You're freaking capable, okay? Allow yourself to redefine, and in that time of redefining yourself, you will kind of cut away all of the things that don't resonate with you, and it will bring clarity to who you are. The next step I'm going to talk about is really, really key because I've had quite a lot of people in my comment section on TikTok asking about this, and just this whole narrative of like, I don't know who I am, trying to discover my true self. I've only ever known myself to be this one thing. And how do I discover that? And honestly, like, if I can encourage you to do anything, like, you need to get curious about who you are. You need to ask the questions and you need to revert back to this childlike mentality. And a great thing that I have always told people is to try new hobbies, try new things. The thing about the identity crisis is that it's going to be in multiple steps and it's going to take some time. So once you feel like you're kind of allowing yourself to redefine who you are, you're going to discover who you really are by allowing yourself to actually walk some of that out. So you need to get curious. If you've never tried playing an instrument, but you've always been curious about it, pick the freaking instrument up and learn it. If you've wanted to learn how to play a sport, but you've never done it up until this point, now is the time. Go get involved in a freaking softball league. There's tons of opportunities to get involved in local community leagues that don't cost freaking money at all. If you want to learn how to master something, like this is what I love about like the internet. Like YouTube is a great example of free resources all around to teach you how to try something new, to master something. You take a master class on communication. You can learn how to draw. You can learn how to paint. You can pick up a hobby that is fueling you, that doesn't involve anyone outside of you. And that is the big key factor. You need to pick up a hobby that doesn't involve somebody else doing something and praising you for it and rewarding you. It doesn't need to involve a goal. It doesn't need to involve money. It doesn't need to involve anybody other than you. And if you are proud of you, if the little kid within you that was kind of curious about that all those years ago, and you kind of forgot about it and dismissed it because it's like, oh, it's not realistic, like whatever. If that little kid within you is happy, if you're feeling like you're coming alive again, if you're enjoying life again, that is exactly what you need to be doing. You need to pursue that and really dig deep. And it's okay if you try one thing and you hate it. Like, let's say you are like, I've always wanted to run a marathon. You start doing it and you're like, I am miserable. This is not for me. Okay, try something new. Like, this is the experimental time. Like I said, life is like a science experiment, and you get to play around with all the different things with you and really, really discover who you are. But this is going to be a key factor in getting past this point of like, well, who am I if I don't have this one thing that I've always thought? Like, you're so much more. You're so much more than that. You just need to try things and see what happens when parts of you resonate with the music or the art or the exercise or the speaking or whatever it is that you want to do. I'm a horseback rider. That's the one thing that you don't need to pay me to want to do. I'm never going to not want to ride horses and be around horses. That is a part of my identity that nothing and no one will ever take from me, and I don't need anybody to be there. I will gladly do it by myself. So that is a great example of finding your true self and kind of laying the groundwork and the foundation on that, because you cannot love you and your identity if you don't even know what the heck you like, and if you don't even know what the heck you're wired in terms of the things that you enjoy that don't involve external approval. You get what I'm saying? Journaling is going to be a huge step in this. So if you're not journaling, if you're not reflecting on this process and you're not reflecting, then you're not really going to have like a frame of reference of like where you've come from to where you are now. Inner dialogue is really, really powerful. The amount of negative self-talk that we have is substantial. It's really interesting to see how many people are finally acknowledging in this industry how much negative self-talk we permit in our lives and how much of it we actually have. I know for me, when I was dealing with this, I was having negative self-talk like, I don't know, every couple seconds. It is fascinating when you think about how many thoughts we have per day. On average, people think anywhere between 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. And a lot of that, especially if you're in an identity crisis, a lot of that can be negative if you allow it, if you permit it. And so when you journal and when you reflect, you have a chance to get that inner dialogue out. I've always been a proponent of, I would much rather have that come out of me and write it so that it's like something I can shed rather than carry it around in my body. If you've done any sort of therapy, our bodies carry the negative thoughts and the negative trauma within it. And it can manifest in our body through any sort of like ailments. All of those things affect our bodies, and our bodies can manifest those ailments when we don't get rid of those things, when we don't dispose of them. And so journaling and reflecting gives you a chance to get all of that negative talk out, but then also respond to it. I don't know about you, but when I journal, if I'm really having a low day, I'll like write down all of those thoughts, and then I read them back, and I'm like, oh, I'm actually thinking that about myself. Like, that's terrible. I don't believe that at all. And it's a way, because you're almost taking it out of you. It's kind of like when you're journaling, you're doing what Dumbledore does in Harry Potter, where he takes his memories and puts it in the pensieve. So it's like something he can reflect on in the future from like a fresh perspective and fresh eyes. But at the same time, like when you're writing it, you read it, and you're like, oh my God, I think those things about myself. I don't believe that's actually true. You can respond in real time in journaling or the next day when you're reflecting on, the things that you were experiencing the day before, and approach it from this place of like, you're getting it out of your system, and you can respond from this place of like, now that that's not cluttering your mind, those negative thoughts and those negative feelings are not cluttering your mind and your body and your heart, you can approach it from a place of fresh perspective and your true core beliefs. Because it's amazing what we would think about ourselves if we would dispose of the negative self-talk, what we actually truly believe. But a lot of times we allow the negative self-talk to crowd everything and almost kind of like take over. It's like weeds, they grow over the good soil to where nothing can sprout from above it. And it's like choking out the life of what's really under the good soil. But when we get rid of the weeds and we clear out the soil, really, really good vegetation can grow from within it if we declutter ourselves. I hope that's making sense. Journaling and reflection is a really, really key part in this process. And so I really encourage you to do every single step and embrace every single step as best as you can in order to grow exponentially on the other side of an identity crisis. The next part is going to be up to your discretion as far as like how you want to execute it, but I recommend talking to trusted individuals. If it's not going to be a therapist, then you need to have some sort of mentor, some sort of person, I would say, who's already been through something like this that can kind of talk you off the ledge. Because I'd like to say that this entire process is going to be linear. Like first you're going to have the traumatic event, and then you're going to experience the discomfort of like, well, who am I? And then you're just going to want to shed the old narrative, and it's all going to be linear and easy. But I guarantee you it's not, because it wasn't like that for me. Everything's going to come in waves. There's going to be days where you feel good and you have some clarity, and then there's going to be days where you don't feel like you have any clarity at all, and you've been going through this and you don't know what to do, and you're going to want to quit. Whatever quit looks like for you, okay? Because it can be as dramatic as quitting life, and then it can be as subtle as just giving up on the process. So I recommend, if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have somebody that you know that has been on the other side of something like this to talk you off the ledge and to walk you through it and encourage you, you need to find somebody. And if that is not a therapist, if it's not a mentor, if it's not like a trusted family member, I guarantee you there's somebody that you can find. If you need to start with a professional, then you need to do that. And honestly, like, money should not be an issue when it comes to mental health, okay? And I'm sure that there are nonprofit 501c3 individuals that you can find to talk to on a regular basis, because there are people who do this as a nonprofit organization. There are people who are professional therapists who do it for profit. Whatever you need to do, mentor, therapist, trusted friend or family member, you need to find that person. The next thing is going to be key, and it is taking small intentional steps in the direction of what you want to do. When you set your mind on something you want to try, when you set your mind towards something that you want to move towards, you need to understand it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to wrestle with that idea that it's going to happen overnight, because I've done that, where it's like I make a decision and I kind of move in that direction, then nothing happens and you get discouraged, because after a while in the identity crisis, you get tired of being in the crisis. And so you want it to be over, but this is not a process that can be rushed. And so you need to understand it's like discipline. With the discipline, the change will happen, but it's going to take time, and you need to give yourself grace. There might be failure involved. There might be some tweaking. There might be additional discomfort or just more uncertainty. Understand it doesn't happen overnight. Keep at it. As you're doing that, you're developing the discipline. And you are creating more clarity for yourself that you really want to do this. So it's okay to move in a direction, try something new, and if you hate it, change in another direction. Because what we're not going to do in our identity crisis and overcoming the identity crisis is we're not going to fall back into the same thought patterns of marrying our entire self to one thing, and when it doesn't work out, we just fall apart again. That was the old way of doing things. We need to understand that life is not as personal as we make it, okay? So Just try something new. Keep at it for a while. If you hate it, change directions, change horses, whatever. But if you decide with a clear mind, clear conscience, clear heart, this is what I want to do, understand it's not going to happen overnight. So just keep at it. Keep going. Like I said, there's no perfect path to this, and it's not going to be a 1, 2, 3, ABC. I'm done. I know exactly who I am. I have perfect peace, and I'm making all the money in the world, and I feel successful. No, it doesn't work like that. So there are going to be failures. There's going to be additional discomfort. You're going to have growing pains. If you're going to change careers and you need to go back to school, that is just a part of the growing pains. If you need to get a new skill set, you're going to have to work that muscle of that skill. And that is going to be painful. You're going to be sore some days. You're going to be uncomfortable. It's part of it. But the whole process of the identity crisis is to grow you exponentially. We're going from adding to your life to multiplying in your life. Another thing that we need to remember is that we're not going to have it all figured out. It's not like we start from the beginning and we know what's going to happen at the end. So we're taking one step at a time, and with each step, we're going to gain more clarity. You cannot skip steps. So it is just a process of getting from point A to point B, but understand that it's not just like one and done. Okay? Give yourself grace to understand that it's going to take time. You're going to have to take small steps, one day at a time. But the big key factor is that we keep showing up. Honestly, if you can just keep showing up to whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you want to become, that is going to be the defining factor that will lead you to success in that thing, that will lead you to accomplishing that thing. Not that it is a reflection of your value and your self-worth, but it's merely proof of it. And that is the point of the identity crisis, is we finally have clarity on who it is that we are and what it is that we want to do with the time that we have. If you are here in this video and you feel like the identity crisis is resonating with what you're going through, and you feel stuck in life and you're not really sure what to do next, you've had this big traumatic life event and you feel like who you've always known yourself to be is no longer in line with what you're seeing in your life, understand that it is a normal process of life. And everything from here on out is about growing through it. It is about evolving. It's about adapting. It's about growing. It is about change. So the person that you were when the identity crisis door slammed you in the face is not going to be the person that you are when you come out of it. Okay? So it's like you go into the hair salon one way and you decide you're going to chop your hair off, dye it a different color. You're not going to be the same person when you come out. You've gone through a transformation. This is a transforming thing. It is fantastic. It is good. It is essential to reach that next level in life. The defining factor in your success, or not, is how you think and view yourself. If you reject the process of the identity crisis, you are not going to overcome. You're not going to be ready to inherit the success. You're not going to be able to have the discipline to pursue it. This is the defining moment for you. Is it uncomfortable? Oh my gosh, yeah, it is. Does it suck? Absolutely. Is it essential? Yeah, it is. But you can do it, because what you've thought yourself to be this whole time, you are so much more than that. You can only find it when you embrace this process. And at first it's going to suck and it'll be uncomfortable, but there's going to be times where it's fun. You need to understand that life has endless opportunities and you literally can do anything and be successful at it if it's what you want to do. But you're going to have to run hard and you're going to have to believe in yourself. Not in the person that your mom or dad defined you to be, not the person that your teacher in school defined you to be, not in anything that your boss or the world around you told you that you are. You have to find it from within, and that is what the identity crisis is handing you. And you need to understand that it is a matter of seeing it from that perspective, that you can embrace the discomfort and the pain and all of the blood, sweat, and tears and turn it on its head. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and you have it right there with you. We're not going to find the perfect person in a day. This is not a linear experience of a 3-step process to getting you to success. I wish that I could tell you that. But if you are here, it is because you are meant to be here, and there's something within you that you need to confront so that you can inherit the most valuable part of your life, which is you. And only you can do that. It is 100% essential. If you want to be rich, if you want to be successful, if you want to be blessed in life, this is the training ground for all of that. Know that you can do it. Lean into it. There are so many people who have already done it, and I know that they can cheer you on. So find a mentor who can push you through that process, kind of like push on those pressure points to keep you motivated, but also inspire you. And remember that this is not a unique experience to you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's no reason, nothing that you have done to get to this point where all of a sudden you've deserved this horrible thing in life. This is a life-changing, life-altering, transformative thing that will rock your world if you allow it. So embrace it as best as you can and know that I am cheering you on. I hope that you feel encouraged, motivated, and that you can inherit the success that is meant for you in your life. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned for more content on my channel. Like this video, share it with a friend. Let's inspire each other, and remember that we are made for more and we have a destiny for beautiful things ahead of us. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.